Welcome to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you choose on your terms. Today is Friday, June 7th, 2024, and this is episode 913 of Living Free in Tennessee. Should I even do a show if we're on a 13? You better answer that in the mic and not over there.
Well, we also have power strip, a gimbal thing, whatever this case is for.
That's lights.
Like, I guess today is bring your own chair day.
Today is Bring Your Own Chair Day at the Homestead Happenings show, and that's because yesterday I got up at 5. Well, I got out at 6:30. I think I was on the road by 6:30, which isn't that bad. Like, I'm already up anyway. But usually in the mornings, I take care of all of this stuff, right? And stuff did not get taken care of. So I just got up, did a couple of things, packed the car, went out, and drove to Camden, Tennessee to meet in person with the SRF team that's in Tennessee so that we could be real clear about what the roles are for the event. And we got to sit with John Willis and Amanda Willis to talk about their stuff. And if you're hearing noises in the background, that's literally Letty, who I really hope is also on this live stream so she can feel guilty about it. She won't feel guilty. I know her well enough. But I hadn't done that for the last Self-Reliance Festival, and I regretted not doing it going into the spring one.
Okay.
And so the only day I could find to do it was yesterday. And yesterday is 2 days before our chicken processing workshop. So I came back, and today is dedicated to chicken processing workshop setup, but also some things are upside down at my house because usually on Thursday I have a lighter schedule, and that's when I catch up on laundry and do other stuff. So did I catch up on laundry yesterday?
No,
I left really early in the morning, and then I picked up the chickens for the workshop, and then I drove home, and I got stuck for an extra 45 minutes in Dixon
with chickens in the back.
Chickens in the back of the truck that I didn't want to have get too hot, who like to drink water and did not have water in my truck. And it was an unclear situation. Like, I got to the intersection where the incident happened, and there was like a U of police cars and fire trucks and no disabled vehicles. So now our theory is a pedestrian got hit. Possibly. But they had the whole highway closed. Highway 70 was closed on half of it. They were routing our lane over to the oncoming lane and one lane each direction, and then making all traffic going the other way turn and go around. Yeah. So it was just a whole mess. And I watched people. It was the most fascinating observation of people because I watched more than one person pull out into oncoming traffic, like head to head, trying to get out and almost crash.
Yeah.
And I was like, I mean, I've just thrown myself to the gods that manage time at this point. There's nothing I could do except for not be a jerk to people around me, not make it worse by getting in an accident. But not everybody felt that way. My favorite incident was before I even got to it. I'm at a gas station, and I think already there was a backup on 70. I had pulled over at the gas station to make sure the chickens were okay after driving for the first hour. And I looked in, and one of them was all in the corner, and I made it get out of the corner so it wouldn't get squished. And nobody died, by the way, yesterday. So that's good. Yeah. Well, maybe that pedestrian did, but none of the chickens in the truck died. I don't know what happened with the pedestrian, but they're sitting at an intersection out of the gas station, and they want to turn left, but they don't have a signal in, and they're in the right-hand lane where you would turn right, not the left-hand lane. And all I'm smelling is this overpowering scent of gasoline. They might be dumping. There's so much. It's either they got it all over their car, or it's literally flowing out the bottom, but I didn't see any liquid flowing out the bottom. And I'm like, oh, this is great for the chickens too. They're smelled the gasoline fumes are coming up in there. If it's coming in my truck, imagine what the back of the truck was like for the gasoline smell. So all of a sudden the person gets pissed off, and it's 2 lanes of oncoming traffic. There's no traffic there because of how the lights work. They pull out, they go left, and they don't pull into across the highway into the left lane where you'd be. Nope. They're in the second lane going this way, driving up towards the light the wrong direction. And I don't know if they did that on purpose or not, But then
Very possibly.
like, did you not like figure out that, and you got out there and you're like, oh no, what have I done? And then they pulled over to the right hand, this going with the way lane, which is their left. And then they tried to turn left through the intersection. And right as they did that, there was literally a cop sitting at the intersection. I saw lights go on and I'm like, wow, Murphy really, I mean, like, not Murphy, but what would it, yeah, karma really hit him immediately on that one. And I was like, I'm just gonna turn right and stay in the right lane going that way, which is where it's supposed to go, and not the right lane going that way, which is not the way you're supposed to do. I'm like, are you like high? Like, what is the deal? Anyway, it was a very big adventure, but I got home at 7:30 last night, 8 o'clock, like 7:40. I was like, we're never gonna eat dinner and I'm gonna die. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't like eating dinner that late. No, they were not out of staters, Adam. They were local Dixon, like they knew better. Or they who knows what they did. Like it was just like all you had to do if you needed to get somewhere was turn right, get in the left lane, put your left signal on. Eventually there would have been a gap between cars because a lot of people were just letting people in. Go across and go on a back road. Like through a parking lot like that. I saw a lot of people doing that. Like that was not disruptive. It was when the people were pulling in front of other people. I was letting a truck was merging in behind me, and there was a gap of almost a whole semi truck, but not quite. And we were waiting so I could pull forward so he could get in. And I saw somebody come the wrong way up the road and parallel park into that gap.
Yeah, it's when I go to Cookeville.
Chicanery was afoot in Dixon, Tennessee yesterday.
It's like when I go to town, I plan all of my stops for pretty much all right-hand turns to get into the parking lot, with the exception of there's a couple of places I'll go where it's like I can make a right out of this parking lot, make an immediate right onto this side road, and hit the other road that goes the rest of the way through Cookeville, so it's still all right-hand turns.
I'm not that methodical.
Oh, I am, because it saves so much time.
Yeah, and if you waste 30 seconds with him on a route, he gets really frustrated.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things with when you've got 7 or 8 stops to make.
Look, Anarchy's in the house.
You might sit there for 30 seconds. You might sit there for 4 minutes. And you multiply that times 7 or 8. And when I lived in Mobile, there was one intersection where it's like, if somebody loves you that day, you can pull up to the stop sign and just turn left. I've literally sat at that stop sign for almost 15 minutes.
So we're 9 minutes into the show. And we haven't talked about what the show's about. You want to talk about what the show's about today?
I don't even know what the show's about.
The show today is about observing your flock, transporting workshop chickens, which you've probably heard most of that story at this point, freezer alarms and sensors. And Yolink failed me, and I'll tell you why. But don't worry, Yolink's still a really good product, but operator error. And then a not so great garden update after last week's great garden update. The winds have changed at the Holler Homestead. So that's what we're talking about. Our featured event of today's show is the Haven Earth Trade School Homestead Boot Camp, which is next week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Saturday, like Friday's sort of a half arrive day, Saturday session, Sunday, I think there's one session and leave. So that'll be down near Chattanooga. Go to havenearthtradeschool.com to find out more, or use the link in the show notes, which will be out after this live stream is done being recorded. And that'll take you straight to the product. You can always email Amani through the Haven Earth Trade School website to find out how to sign up. It's like not super obvious on their site how to sign up, I think, because they want to talk to you in email. But $250 does not include food. If you want to add their food package, that's an extra $100. And there's gonna, like, Sean Mills will be there. I'll be there. It's going to be a really fun class, like workshop. It's a chance to go out on a homestead that's developing and seeing what they're doing. And then they're doing a lot of natural building methods. So if you're really into natural building, I would say that's a really fun thing to do. I'm going to be talking about food preservation. And I need to talk to Amani this week to see what's coming off their garden for preservation. And if something isn't, then I'm going to bring something down. so we can actually preserve some stuff together. So there we go. Empty says, any suggestions for critters eating my zucchini plants? Not sure if it's squirrels or rabbits. My suggestion is find out if it's squirrels or rabbits, if it's actual critters eating your zucchini plants, so that you can take specific measures for those specific animals. Because like if it's a cat, you can set up a sprinkler that's on a motion sensor and they will stay out of it. Squirrels are a little trickier, but it is possible to deter them. Rabbits are what I'm going to say are most likely. If it's rabbits, you need to exclude the rabbits from your garden, which probably means putting a fence up. And they can dig under stuff, so you need to think like I would like if you get a fence tight to the ground, they may not bother digging. But if they start digging under, then you're going to have to make it so they can't dig under by digging down. So when they dig under, they're hitting the fencing, like you bury the fence down in or put something they can't dig. But most wildlife, like a rabbit, if there are other things for it to mess with, when you make it hard for them to mess with your garden, won't. And I can say in my fenced garden, I have never had a problem with a rabbit. Now I'm going to. I've never had a problem with a rabbit, and that's partially because of the fence and partially because of the dogs.
Yeah.
When I first saw this question, I thought I was going to have to talk about squash vine borers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I saw the question, it's like my first thought of dogs. Like, easy button.
Yeah, but dogs won't solve all the problems.
No, but they solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. A fence really solves a lot of problems around the garden, too.
So
the way you can find out what it is put a camera up. Like get a cheap game cam at Walmart or something and put it up and it'll record and you'll be like, oh, it's a bird or whatever. A-Ray Pierce says bury big rocks around the garden and then fencing if possible. Yeah. And fencing is always possible.
Yeah.
Like even a temporary fence that's 2 feet high for a rabbit that's keeping the rabbit out.
Yeah.
It's keeping the ducks out. It's not keeping a deer out. Is it deer? Because that's a whole nother thing. If it's a deer, Billy Bond at Permapastures Farm makes bone broth that deters deer. Bone sauce. Sorry, I said bone broth. He makes bone sauce that is supposed to deter deer for the rest of your life, basically. I haven't used it here because I haven't needed it. He gave me some a couple years ago, and I gave it to a friend of mine who did have deer in her garden, though, and it has worked for her. And it's made out of deer bones. Like, so there's a whole method he goes through. He talks about it on his stuff, but it's worth, I think it was like $80 for a little jar of this stuff. But if you're having deer problems, it's definitely worth checking that out too.
Yeah. And temporary fencing, one of my favorite solutions is if you've ever seen like the orange fencing they use at construction sites, Lowe's sells a green version of that. And it's not very expensive.
Yeah, rabbits will get to that.
Well, rabbits might, but like
squirrels will get over anything. So that's
an easy fencing solution to put up, and then you could use something else smaller and attach that to it.
Yeah, Beth Emily says fencing in a Siberian Husky. Yeah. Yeah, the German Shepherd really helped me with the squirrel problem here. I haven't seen a squirrel on my property in
I have
years, except for perimeters and edges.
Yeah.
And they're up in the trees, you know. But in general, we also don't like. I've seen some serious squirrel pressure at people's houses. It's way different than what I've ever faced here.
Yeah.
So if it's squirrels, there's going to be some things you need to do. You might even have to like box that in. But I don't know why squirrels would be eating a zucchini plant.
I don't either.
Because that's not really their thing. I'm going to suspect rabbits or deer.
Yeah. But game cams are also entertaining to see what's actually coming through. And if it's something like, I used to have a pair of foxes that used to come through my yard, and between sitting on the front porch late at night and game cams, like I very quickly established they come through between 10 and 2, and they pretty much follow the same track every single night.
You know, the other thing I know people have done for deer and other critters is they have a sound maker. It's like, I don't know what it's called, but it goes, which you then have to listen to. But that's something they do in vineyards in Oregon for birds too.
Yeah.
And that may be something like that, may be something you can do to deter it. I really like the dog solution though a lot.
Yeah.
Because dogs who help you with varmints are helpful. But it took us, I'd say it was about 2 years before our dog issues, like my dog on property really handled most varmints.
Yeah.
Like I only had overhead varmints after that, and that was rare because the dogs are taught to bark at the sky when they see big birds. But occasionally one is just crazy. Like we had that one owl come that was clearly it was sick.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'd like to thank a sponsor right now because we're going to go completely off plan based on the questions that we see in the comments. And that's fine. That's actually the purpose of the Friday show. Unlike Mondays, I get to be more responsive to y'all as we go. So this is really a conversation about you hearing about our homestead, right? Did you notice that we've had wave after wave after wave of thunder and lightning and tornadoes and rain this year?
Yes.
Has it seemed like more than usual?
I keep throwing hay on the path going down to the cabin because it's still a mud slick and it hasn't rained in a couple of days.
Yep. Do you know what comes with those storms?
Lightning.
You know what lightning does to stuff in your house?
Yes, because I've seen it happen.
What happened?
We actually had an antenna get struck by lightning, and it was an old antenna. They removed the wire by curling it up and shoving it into the ceiling tiles, and it smoked everything but one of the computers that was on where the surge protector thing actually worked. But I mean, phones, the controls for the gate, the other computer, like everything got smoked.
So I regularly run through my house and unplug stuff when I realize we're going to get lightning storms because my EMP shield is not yet installed. There will be a video on it being installed, but if only there was a device that could help you with lightning surges. Oh, wait, there is. And they have insurance if it fails. That's empshield.com. I've been working with those guys for a couple years. If you want to get one for $50 off, go to empshield.com. Use the coupon code LFTN for Living Free in Tennessee. And that will get you 50 off. And then you just got to pay the dude to install it. Or maybe you're an electrician and you can install it.
Yeah.
We won't talk about other things. You know what the other options are, guys. Okay. First segment is forage. This is what we're finding out in the fields. What are you finding out in the fields besides poison hemlock?
I mean, not much. Even the grass is slowed down.
There's tons of stuff from the forager standpoint, though. The elderberry are blooming so that you can eat the elderflower. A lot of people will bread them and make fritters out of them. We won't because we don't really eat carbs, but they're beautiful. Some people, Anarchy says, wood ticks.
Oh, yeah, I'm finding plenty of those.
We should talk about ticks in a bit. That's a great idea. Empty says, I think my livestock guardian dog thinks she is, but not in a good way. She dug up my apple tree. And Empty is the one who asked the question about the rabbity thing, and we'll try fencing and a game cam. Yeah, it's really fun to put the game cam up. Okay, elderberries. Black raspberries are ripe, and I'm getting a handful every time I go on a rock, and they're starting to taste better now that it's not raining as much. I did a little short on the difference between a black raspberry in the wild and a blackberry in the wild. Our blackberries are not ready to harvest yet, so they're also a little behind. And my shower blackberry vine is gone. There's been a thornless blackberry that likes to grow up in my outdoor shower. And finally, I'm like, let's just admit you want to be here and I'll just like train you up the wall. You're thornless anyway. It doesn't matter. And Mama Sauce was here for fewer than one day when the vine had disappeared from the shower. So she apparently did not appreciate my aesthetic on that one. Okay. So I'm not going to get blackberries for my thornless blackberry plant yet again. So sad. Angie says wood sorrel's coming up. I have seen some of that around. It's time for the first mint harvest of the year where we dry it. I'm going to stick to chocolate mint this year mostly, although the creek mint is thriving because the ducks ate all the watercress. Stupid ducks. Dandelions are flowering, so it's a good time to get those. Jewelweed, yarrow, Queen Anne's lace is blooming. And I just learned this year that of some other uses for Queen Anne's lace. I think Queen Anne's lace is an under-discussed wild herbal plant because people mistake it for poison hemlock, which is why I brought up poison hemlock. Now here, poison hemlock blooms before Queen Anne's lace, and it's a completely different looking plant. But something that's important is poison hemlock has like a smooth stem. Queen Anne's lace has hairy stem. And if you're not 100% sure about a Queen Anne's lace ID, don't just make it up. That's not one you make it up on. Any wild plant that has a lookalike that can kill you, you want to be like really, really sure. But it is blooming, and it is not hemlock. And we're going to learn a lot more about Queen Anne's lace this year because it's the one that speaks to me. I pet it when I go on walks. I like give it little pet heads. Okay. Is that weird?
Possibly.
I feel this like association with certain plants on my walk, like they're friends of mine. Okay. So there's a specific pawpaw tree that I like. And I say hi to it. You do know which one because I always make you go shake it.
Yeah.
And they cut it last year. The county cut it. And I was like, I'm so sorry they cut you. Because it was hanging over the road. And then there's like specific Queen Anne's laces. So I give them little pet heads. Yeah. I bet you didn't know that about me, did you? I feel like there's a reason. Like when you touch plants, there's an energetic thing that happens.
Yeah.
So, and I figure if I feel like touching a plant, it probably wants me to touch it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yarrow. Already said yarrow. Oh, lamb's quarter. So there's lamb's quarter over by the box elder tree by my roasting shack, and you better not trim it.
You better point it out then.
I will. It's going to be the thing you're tempted to trim today before the workshop, and I want it there so we can eat greens from it on Saturday night after the workshop for the chickens. Because like I find when I forage wild greens, I feel better.
Yeah.
And my other patch of lamb's quarter that Spirko promised me was going to come back forever has not, because it turns out in a head-to-head face-off that the apple mint will choke out the lamb's quarter. Yeah. So apple mint's a very powerful plant. Oh, Porterhouse is in the house. Hello, yep. Porterhouse. What's up? Porterhouse wants to know what's up. Answer him.
You see it.
Nicole, the plant. I am not a plant whisperer, AR. I am a plant killer, but sometimes in the course of killing lots of plants, I learn how to cultivate certain plants. Is that about right? We'll talk about that in the garden section because this year I did a new one.
Yeah.
So every time you learn how to kill something, you learn how to keep it alive.
Yeah. So dogs digging up and eating trees. If it's something that you planted recently, it's because the dog is aware that you did something with that tree.
Yeah.
So
it's helping you.
Don't let the dog see you plant the thing and water the ever-living piss out of it to wash your scent off of it. Because dogs are naturally curious, and if they see you dicking with the thing, then they're going to go dick with the thing.
Okay. You can also like coat the top around it with like river rock, and it's hard to dig through from a dog's perspective.
Tell that to Sunny.
That's true. She is a different one. You could put a little fence around it.
You could do that too.
Post fence. We need to do that anyway with the fodder trees before we run the sheep back through. It's about time to move boys over here.
Probably getting to that point.
Yeah. Either that or I need to make 5 tiny little boy aprons. We could do that.
Yeah, well, there's one that's significantly bigger than the rest of them, so he's coming along quickly.
Oh. I wonder if Floki got one last one in. That's a Floki genetic. Probably. Okay. Anyway, Angie says, I hear that plants grown on your own property are better suited to feed yourself. I've heard the same thing and can find no corroborating research on that. So if anybody has research on that, I'd like to read it because Xavier Hawk cited a study where they found that plants that you work with will sense what micronutrients you're missing and bring them up. And then you eat the plant, you get the micronutrients. And I was like, that's fascinating. And then he can't find the study. Nobody can find the study. That was in 2021. that conversation happened. So I would love it if anybody could do that. Anyway, okay. Next segment is livestock. I told Tactical this morning, because he went to give Stormy her bottle, that I wanted to give her bottle today, but then I couldn't because I needed to go. I had an 8 o'clock call, and her timeline and my timeline were not mixed for me to be able to do the bottle and come back in time. And I'm like, but I really want to get over there and see her today. He's like, I want you to too. And I'm like, what? Why'd you say that?
I noticed it like yesterday or the day before that one of the younger rams, his ear is a little bit floppy on the end.
Just like the end.
Yeah, it's not like the whole ear is flopped over. It's just like the tip of it's kind of just curling over. And there's something not correct about it.
One of the reasons it's great to see your livestock every day, if you can, is you notice little changes. And in a ruminant like a sheep, or like sheep, that's not a single sheep is not a... Anyway, small changes can mean big things. Because they will hide that they're sick until they're really sick, and then it's too late. So I have no idea what a folded ear means, except for it could be a hematoma. And I know how to treat it if it's a hematoma. And this is an animal that's being processed anyway, so I'm not worried about it passing its genetics on. But if it's a hematoma, those often happen because they're shaking their heads too much. So then if it's shaking its head, it's like, do we have ear mites? And then if one has ear mites, does everybody have ear mites? That's sort of the road I've gone down so far as figuring out what I'm looking for. But I want to go take a really close look and see if there is something early and make sure we're going to have to catch them all. We need to do I need to look at like their condition as far as parasites too.
Yeah.
Because we don't worm ours, but if somebody were to get anemic, I would worm them.
Yeah.
So that just tells me we need to take a closer look. We've had an extremely wet spring, which means things can grow that would not necessarily normally grow when it's dry. On the other hand, grass grew. So that's been good from a feeding standpoint. And the condition of our sheep are looking pretty good when I look at them, for most of them, as far as how big they are based on the food they ate, except for the one that is nursing 3. And then the new one. So Khaki's too skinny.
Yeah.
Because it's her first set of babies. And I don't think that's been easy on her. But observing your flock's pretty important. And when you see a change, like when you're like, I keep looking at that one, why do I look at it? Take a closer look. Because the sooner you know something, the better your chances of preventing an issue. Good morning, Red Flyer Media. Hoof trimming. We need to hoof trim. How are we going to catch them all?
Creep.
We can do the eye thing and the mouth thing and the hoofs all at one time if we catch them one at a time.
Okay.
We should also do the ear tag thing at that time, because we've gotten to the point on our flock where we're starting to debate who's who. And I feel like right now we can work it out, but if we don't label them, we're not going to know.
Yeah.
And I want to know.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. How are the rabbits?
Still there.
What's it going to take to set up their new system?
I need time to actually finish building it.
How much time do you need?
Probably a good 2 or 3 days.
So, like 22 hours?
I don't know.
8 hours a day? 3 days? Or just...
I don't know.
Okay. If we get one whole day, does that help you assess what it'll be?
Maybe. The first thing I've got to do is figure out the measurements for the thing, which I haven't even had time to do that. I'm really looking forward to your schedule being here and not everywhere.
God does not want me to be on my homestead, apparently. Because I'm going to California. Anyway, we'll talk about what that schedule looks like. Do you have to dock the tails of your sheep, or does the breed you have not need it? Some people dock the tails of the breed I'm raising, which are St. Croix or Katahdin. So St. Croix and Katahdin are closely related from what I understand. And a lot of Katahdin owners will dock the tail. St. Croix, not so much, but on the females in particular, because the tail hangs down and gets all afterbirthy and then that can be a fly attractant. But we do not have to dock the tails, and we do not dock the tails.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you hear a one-size-fits-all solution like that, my first question is always why.
So,
Because you just mentioned afterbirth. I don't have an issue with that because I have 2 LGDs that like to lick sheep bottoms. It's disgusting, but
dogs are gross.
I've
PSA.
only had to clean afterbirth off of a sheep's tail once.
Yeah, that was before the LGDs.
Yeah, and that was before the LGDs.
Mm-hmm. So that is one reason why. And then I think the tail is there to help them with fly control.
Yeah.
Which tells me I want to leave that tool in their toolbox if it'll work. So
yeah,
a lot of the wool sheep breeds, they need to dock the tail because of the same thing, like poop or whatever gets on the tail. Then it attracts the flies, and then they get fly strike more, which is why we're not doing, well, one of the reasons we're not doing wool sheep in Tennessee is it's a much higher incidence of fly strike with our particular climate. And so the people I know who have done wool sheep here, it's not like it's impossible. They're like, it's a lot of, we got to deal with parasites all the time, like a lot more maintenance. And I'm not up for that. So and my purpose for the sheep is to eat them. As much as I'd love to get wool off of them because I like to spin wool, I can talk to a friend who raises wool sheep in a more appropriate environment and probably buy some.
Yeah.
And if I can't buy it from her, she may know somebody I can buy. Like eventually somebody will sell me some.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the deal on the sheep tails. Back to the rabbit update. I was at Willis's yesterday and he bought, I saw it posted, but he bought these really beautiful rabbits. And they came with a whole rack of cage system. And the solution they had for catching the poop in trays but not having it sit and pee was easy to implement, and I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
And what it is it's the same cement trays you're using. They put a cinder block under them so they're at a slope under the cage, and they drill holes in the bottom so the urine just drains out.
Okay.
So I thought I'd bring that up because I know that we've had some debate on if you're just going to have it hit the ground and shovel it out, or if we do trays, and I find the trays easier and you think the shovel will be better because the urine soaks into the ground.
There's more to my reasoning than just that. Part of it too is if you're not going to get to the trays because of time, it's definitely easier to use a shovel than having to use a shovel to dig the tray out.
Okay.
So the way I'm setting it up is so that you can do either or. So if, it's a slow time of year and we're just going to be throwing everything straight on the garden, you can throw trays under there and everything's going to work fine. But when we're going to be going from it's spring and everything's growing to SRF to your workshop to whatever other event is then, and it's like I'm not going to do anything besides check feed and water for the next 2 months. I can pull the trays out, and then when I get time, I can just go back in there with a shovel, and it's easier.
So A. Ray Pierce says, does the rabbit poop dry out faster if it goes on the ground? It seems to do that here. Not so much here. Our ground is very wet, and the poop is very hard to use that I have to shovel from under the rabbit cages, which is why I haven't been using it this year.
Well, part of that...
Yeah.
And part of that problem is the location where it's at right now because it's catching all of the rain runoff.
Yeah.
And so they need to move. The only reason they're there right now
is a tree fell on them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Angie says they're gorgeous. Yeah, those rabbits are beautiful that John Willis got. I was like, oh, I want to see. He was somebody else who was there. Was it Dawn? One of the Dawns wanted to see his rabbits. There were 2 Dawns there. And he's walking out the door and I'm talking to Amanda. She's like, well, go. I know you want to see him. I'm like, I totally want to see the rabbits. So, yeah. I saw them online for $1,000. And I was like, I'm so tempted, but tactical will kill me.
Yes.
So I didn't buy them. And then John Willis, immediately was like, I'll come get them right now. And he sent one of his guys out. So So that's what's up with the rabbits. I feel like our two next big livestock priorities are sort of the sheep hoof trimming, parasite check, deciding how the rams are going to go thing, and then the rabbits. It is also duck drake culling season right after this workshop. And so that's happening. Chicken day is tomorrow. And then tell us about the chicken you found in the Holler roost.
The one that's Brody?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There's one chicken.
I love it when I ask him a question. He looks at me like he's never heard this topic before. What?
Well, I'm trying to figure out exactly what you're referring to. There was one chicken that's sitting on eggs, and I went to clean the chicken coop out the other day, and literally shoveling 8-10 inches away from her, and she's just looking at me like I'm not moving.
She's also looking at him like, I'm going to kill you. I don't care if you're bigger than me.
She actually wasn't pissed that I was in there.
They still have that look. They're like,
I mean, she was grumpy.
That's my imitation of a broody chicken. Is that about right?
So I wound up shoveling everything but,
her corner.
Yeah, that corner plus an extra, 6-8 inches, and just let her be. And
that was 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So if she's going to hatch birds, it's going to be this week or next week. It depends on how long she was there before you noticed her.
Yeah.
And we don't go in the coop a lot because Steve Eversole built it, and it's mostly automated, so we don't have to go in the coop a lot.
Yeah.
Except for if we were to, I don't know, do what we're supposed to do and get the eggs every day out of that coop that we don't eat, which is why we're not motivated to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I prefer the duck eggs.
Yeah, we get the duck eggs, but I need to clear out the chicken eggs again and then start getting them and get the sign up at the marina, because I'm pretty sure I can just do an egg subscription for somebody there who's on their houseboat. Good morning, Homestead Made Easy. All right. So that's the update from the livestock. We are discussing. I think I'm going to start trying to tether Clover out again.
Okay.
And see how that goes. I won't do it every day, but the goats are bored and they're acting like bored goats, and bored goats are not a good thing to have on your property.
Yeah.
Yeah. Enough said. Next segment is Holler Neighbors and Community.
The question right there with
Angie?
The screen
Yeah.
under it.
So Angie's asking, what about the screen under where the liquid goes and it catches the solids, basically?
And my response to that would be maybe. My concern with that is depending on what you put under there, if the actual manure basically starts to get soggy and turning to something more like mud, it's just going to turn into a manure mud mat on top of the screen, and then the screen is just clogged.
So the screen method has been tested by Nighthawk. Do you know that?
No.
Yes. Before you were paying attention, maybe before you were even here. I don't know. He did the screen method, and the way the screen method worked, he tried to tilt it so it would be like liquids fall through here and it goes in, like it rolls down. They don't roll down necessarily. So you need to empty that screen every day or it cakes up and then the urine soaks in. So I think that's another one where if you're going to do daily maintenance on your poop catcher, it works. The other thing she had on this is because it's stacks of trays, is she has roofing tilted under the top ones that goes off the back into tilted trays.
Yeah.
Which I thought was pretty cool too.
And this, I mean, like I said with the rain runoff thing, it also depends on your specific situation, which is why I hate one size fits all answers. Is where ours are right now, and with the construction of that cage, that stuff's going to get sopping wet regardless of what we do. If not from the urine or the rain runoff from the rain itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Wet rabbit poop is not fun to work with, but it will still give you excellent fertility. Yeah. But then I have to glove up and mud cake sprinkle down which I have video of me doing that online.
Okay.
Where I say I handle all the shit on the pot on the homestead, and I'm sprinkling rabbit poop out. Empty says, I was told ducks have to be separate from the chickens. Is that true? Empty, why do they have to be separate from the chickens? Is it a disease reason or because the ducks are going to kill the chickens? I have never separated my ducks and chickens other than I started a compost chicken system, which is what the Holler Roost is, where we have them compost our food scraps. And that is set up separate from the ducks because I don't want the ducks in there doing duck things. But up until a few years ago, I was always keeping the ducks and chickens together in the same coop.
There's still a chicken in
and there's
coop.
one chicken left from this situation where all the ducks and the one chicken go to bed. They get along fine. Some of them were raised up with the chicken. Like the ducks and chickens were raised in the same brooder until the ducks grew too big and I moved them, but they could see each other and then they were back together. And the problem with the brooding them together was that ducks poop a lot more than chickens when they get to a certain size. That was literally it. So I've let them live together, and then the chickens scratch in the deep litter, which I use the deep litter method, and the ducks don't. They like tap it down with their flat little feet. So when you don't have a chicken in there doing that to the litter, then you have to become the chicken and hoe the litter. And if you don't, it ends up being mud cake deep litter.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done here. Now I have heard, so Empty saying it was told it was a disease reason, so they couldn't be in the same coop. I am sure there is a disease that ducks can pass on to chickens that people don't want to have happen. And there is like the same thing with turkeys. When the chicks are very young, there's a possibility of a disease vector coming in. I don't remember what disease it is. I will tell you again that poultry doesn't read books.
Yeah.
So it depends. Like I am willing to get an infection in my animals and quarantine them and cull them if I need to. So we're going to start there. I have never in 17 years of raising poultry, of which 14 of those years include ducks, I'm pretty sure. I've never had an issue with baby chicks getting diseases from the ducks or the turkeys, but I do have the baby chicks separate until they're 6 to 8 weeks old. They integrate in the yard before they go in the coop. So it may be that they were I've always had the young ones separate. Yeah. So if you're, I mean, do that then. But
that's a situation where it's like, my first question is going to be why, when you come back with a response like that, my second question is going to be, okay, what disease?
It might be coccidiosis or however you say that one. It's one of those that it will kill the baby chicks if they get it.
Yeah.
But the way you get it is by being exposed to the excrement, and like the way the chick gets it is by being exposed to the excrement and eating it.
Yeah, because that's a situation where it's like, once you know specifically what it is, you can design around that.
Yeah.
And if it's something that they just get when they're 3 weeks old, then your design around it is just don't mix them until.
So the reason I don't have baby chicks in the coop isn't for disease reasons. It's because I keep them, even if I can, when a mom raises them, even from the other chickens, I give her her own place, because the other chickens will go after, and the ducks will go after the babies. And the mom will defend them. But yeah. So yeah, definitely tell me what disease it is and I'll give you a better answer. Because in my experience, it has not been an issue here ever in the whole time I've been doing poultry. Like I've from a disease standpoint with my poultry, we've had a couple of worm issues with a singular bird that had poor immune system. And I don't use wormers on my chickens, I cull them. And then we have had, I don't remember what the disease was, but it basically made the chicken lose weight until it wasted away. And when I found out what it was, the only cure for it was an antibiotic. And years ago, I actually did give the antibiotic shot to that chicken, and she did get better. And then we couldn't eat her eggs for 60 days. So then I was like, well, that's something we don't want to deal with either. But the cleaner you keep the coop, the cleaner you keep the water, the less likely it is you're going to get any of these things. And that's probably the most important thing. Like most of the illnesses I've ever gotten in my poultry are my fault for not keeping stuff clean enough. Yeah. The turkey one is called blackhead. Mine got it, but it's in the ground and can be fixed. We've never had a problem with ducks and chickens. So So that's another thing. Yeah, I don't know anything about blackhead because we haven't had it. And the way I learn about all my illnesses in my animals is usually somebody gets sick and I'm like, well, now I need to learn about all about whatever this is.
Yeah.
Apparently ear mites is my suspicion in sheep this time, but
Yeah.
I've had ear mites and rabbits and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
It could just be that a tick got that ear.
Possibly.
But I've dealt with hematomas in dogs, so yeah. It was coming from the lady at Tractor Supply. Yeah, so that's the textbook answer about the blackhead from the turkeys. But I've never heard about blackhead from ducks to chickens. Like they're literally one of the most symbiotic pairs of animals to do deep litter with if you're going to have ducks in deep litter.
Yeah.
It works super well. Okay. Holler Neighbors and Community is our next segment. Holler Neighbors have already been here once helping us get set up for the class. And this afternoon at about 4:30, it all goes like stuff gets real.
Yeah.
So between now and then, he and I are getting everything staged where it needs to be. We need to pull everything out from the carport and power wash, by the way.
Okay.
So we're just getting those things done. The chickens are here and getting the plucker set up. And I'm actually setting up differently than I told you 2 days ago.
Okay.
Because, yeah, anyway. So we'll be getting that going. And then, making sure that the meal that we're cooking is going to be easy to cook and all of that. But the Holler Neighbors will come up for the last wave this evening, and I'm hoping we can be way ahead of the game on that this time.
Yeah.
So it's been great. I mean, it's always great having multiple people set up for things like this because I don't just have one area set up to this all the time that's there like that all the time. It's always like we have to repurpose my outdoor kitchen for this. We have to repurpose Taj Mahal for this. So add Nicole Chicken Joe. Look it up. How do you read? Okay, Food Forest Farms. I don't understand your question. Anyway, so word that differently, please. I'm confused. I'm assuming that's a voice to text issue there. We had a friend have to take one of her sheep to a processor suddenly and hadn't bought a livestock trailer. So we were happy to be able to lend a trailer out and she power washed it while it was gone. So it came back way cleaner.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Tactical didn't notice at all.
I was in the middle of unhooking it. I wasn't paying attention to what it looked like.
She's like, do you notice anything different? And I'm like, sure looks a lot whiter. She's like, I power washed it. I'm like, okay, that makes sense. We totally should have power washed it, but we didn't. And then in the immediate Holler neighborhood, it looks like there will be an opening at base camp sometime in the next half year or so. We're not exactly sure of the timeline, but
I'm gonna go with 3 months. Repeatedly.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll know more when we know more. We'll share more about that. But we have to decide if we're gonna it's worked out really well to have somebody from the community there while they looked for their forever home. And just having somebody in the community is really nice. The way I had it set up before was as an Airbnb rental. Yeah. So the question is, are we going to go back to Airbnb rental or just look for another community member? I don't know. Do you know?
I don't know. We have not had that in-depth conversation.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, he said, yeah, it was voice to text. You do renew in June. Okay, I'll handle that on the side, dude. Wait till after my processing class, but we'll do Bitcoin when the time comes. That's my coffee subscription from Food Forest Farm. So, man, no, I'm not going to say that online. Super secret thing I'm not going to say online right now because it's not a nice thing. It's nothing about you, Food Forest Farms.
Is it about the other one?
I don't like drum roasted coffee all that much.
Okay.
Yeah. That's okay. It's super high quality too. That's the bummer. I'm like, wow, this is a really good roaster. But yeah. Okay, so I already said it. Infrastructure wise, the camper roof is done but not done. And then he queues up while I'm stuck for 45 minutes with nothing to do and says, there's other stuff that have to happen to the roof. It's complicated. We'll talk about it later. I'm like, you don't ever say that to somebody with ADHD. It's like the wrong thing to say.
I was in the middle of a meeting when you hit me up.
A meeting with whom?
I was in Cookville.
Well, why didn't you tell me I'm with Christina? Talk to me in a little while. Why'd you let me even queue up multiple times?
I was trying to just say we'll talk about it when you get home.
You don't say that to somebody with ADHD. We build stories in our head. Was she laughing about it?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, next time say, I didn't know you were in an appointment with Christina yesterday.
Yeah, that's because you're full ADHD and you didn't listen when I told you that.
I knew you were going, but at that time of day, you're not usually with Christina.
It's always at 2.
That was at 3:30.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was like right before 3. I can go look at the timestamp.
Okay, that's weird because I thought I picked up the chickens at 3:30.
ADHD brain.
Whatever. Yeah, so the problem with the camper roof was a very simple thing, was not complicated, did not need to wait till later. The issue was I need to buy trim. I didn't know which trim to buy.
There's more to that conversation, but
what is it?
Like there's still holes that have to get cut in that roof, and
yeah, we need to cut the 2 holes for the 2 things that go through the roof, and then the vent pipes.
Those need to get sealed, and like I haven't even been up there to look at it yet.
Okay. Are we doing that part?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's why I was saying, like, when you get back, we need to go.
Well, I assume Ken isn't coming back a 3rd time, so we're probably doing that part.
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's on our next week to-do list.
It's not on my immediate list.
Well, I need it done by the time I leave Friday.
I need the fencing in the sheep pasture done by next Tuesday.
Okay. This is fun. This is the roofing project that was supposed to take a day.
Now she understands why I hate campers.
No, I don't. I've never seen you do a project anywhere on the property, camper or not, that does not explode into a 10x time commitment.
Well, that's one thing. Campers,
I'm looking. I mean, you know, there is every time. He just doesn't like working on them. Like, has there ever been a project on my house that just goes the way you think it's going to go?
No.
And there we have it, friends. I'm also getting estimates for putting concrete in. If anybody knows somebody who should give me an estimate for putting concrete in, let me know. I have one estimate in right now. It's in the realm of what I was expecting, but I like to get a few estimates before I make a decision of who to do a project. And then we have the freezer fail. Apparently, he doesn't hear beeps.
I didn't hear any beeping.
It was totally beeping that night. And you were outside smoking, but he didn't hear any beeping.
You're well aware of the fact that I'm mostly deaf.
So I have these Yolink sensors in the freezers so that it will text me or it'll like ping me. And apparently it did ping me. But the reason I didn't hear it is sometime in one of my last phone updates, it changed the notification sound from its notification sound to a text message notification sound. So I kept getting text message notifications and no text message. And I was like, what? And it did not give me like the drop down, read the thing, Yolink says, oh no. So the only reason I found out that freezer door was not closed all the way was I got up super early and I heard a beep outside and I'm like, that sounds like a freezer beep. And I went out and it was like cracked that much. And I came back in and the temperature in the freezer was 45 degrees, which is technically over the line for growing potential stuff. The good news is it was only over that line for about an hour.
Yeah.
Because at least I have the data. So I closed the freezer and then you saw it when I told you to go get the other thing out of the freezer.
Yeah, that was like, what, 2 hours before you got home?
Yeah.
And I felt some of the stuff in there, and like the meat that I pulled out was like that one edge closest to the door was starting to thaw out a little bit, but the rest of it was still frozen.
Yeah. So then the question we have to decide is if we are going to eat this meat. And probably the decision I will make is that we're cooking it well done.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do a little bit more research. The time so it never got like warm, but it got above 42 degrees, which I don't want it to do. Luckily, it's not meat that we sell. But I now need to figure out why the notification on my on this phone is not giving me the water thing. Like, not the water thing. Sorry. Tactical looked like he was about to pass out from a heart attack, and I was trying to figure out why that happened. But it turns out his back is just sore. So I'm not sure why it's not giving me the preview message, which then you read and then you know. And I'll be messing with that because YoLink it saved me multiple times when that happened. But I think it's related to I have 3 phones, one of which is my phone, and the other 2 hook up to Wi-Fi. They're old phones, and I use them as media centers. And I think somehow between the app being installed for the same sensors on the same phone is not working right. So I'm going to go through and make sure we're logged out on all the other phones first, and then we're going to test it some more by just taking the sensor out of the freezer. But the reason we have sensors is not to lose a whole freezer full of food. And I'm pretty sure as long as I cook it well, it'll be fine. But I'm going to look at that a little bit more closely. Luckily, there was no seafood in there because that would have been like, oh, nope, seafood was in there. Not messing with that. Throw it away. Sigh. The other thing we're working on is that the chicken guts all have to go somewhere after this class. And we've been upping our compost game. So Tactical just realized today, wait, I'm about to get a 5-gallon bucket full of chicken guts that I need to compost without it smelling bad. So he's making a plan for that. Yeah, Red Flyer says, what a nightmare. And a good reminder to add a sensor to your freezer. Yep. Conversely, Emily Hoff from Holler Homestead, when I picked up the chickens yesterday, she gave me a duck to try, and I put it in my freezer in the back of the truck, which plugs in and I can turn it on, and it can be a freezer or a fridge. And I looked at her on the way out of her house and I said, all I have to do is remember there's a duck in here when I get home. And then I hit all of that traffic and I forgot there was a duck in that freezer. So the duck stayed in that freezer all night. And I woke up this morning at 5 and I was like, oh no, the duck. And the duck was still frozen solid in that freezer because it's that well insulated. So that's my good freezer story. I'd rather have that one for the other freezer that the door got left open on. And yeah, very irritated about that. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we're going to be wrapping up soon. I have nothing to report for finances. I know Tactical has a composting story for you, but I don't know what it is.
No, I was just saying earlier that, like, in all of the revamping of the composting systems, I did not even think about where we're putting all of the chicken stuff.
Well, so realize that because I kept the class head count low,
it's not as much as usual.
It's less than a 5-gallon bucket full, probably.
Hopefully.
It's 12 birds.
Yeah.
So that usually it's 40 birds, guys. So that's a quarter of what we usually get.
Yeah.
So anyway, so chicken class tomorrow. I don't have anything financial to report at this time. And I am just looking forward to getting set up and going and having a great day tomorrow. And then Sunday, I'm going to go to the pool.
Okay.
That's my plan.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, if you like the show and want to support the work I'm doing here, you can do it in 2 ways. 1, get your coffee at hollerroast.com. 2, consider becoming a member. Head over to livingfreeintennessee.com to find out more. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week.